You are connected to the Evolving Digital Podcast.
Welcome everybody to a new episode of Evolving Digital, and today we have a little bit of a different setting, and I'm here with my co-host Janneke Veenstra, who you know from the other podcast, and our guest Tom Kuper. We're going to try it this way. It's going to be a very interesting dynamic. Tom, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So you've been around for quite some time in the digital world. CEO of C4Real. Visual storyteller. You also have another company. It's called Series XR.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that a little bit later. We know each other. We've done some business together in the past. You have a very sharp view on how visual experiences should enhance everything that we do in marketing, but also in business now. So digital transformation, big thing for you. Can we go back a little bit, like about 17 years, and tell us how, tell the listeners how you got into this business?
Oddly specific, 17 years, but yes.
Well, I just checked LinkedIn how long,
Yeah, that's correct. Good thing. But yeah, 2007 started, that's a long while ago, actually. Now I feel a little bit old. But anyways, there was a time, it was actually a half year before the crisis started. It was a very interesting time to get started. And what I saw in the market was that there were a lot of companies, especially in industry, were positioning their proposition, so what they do, what their value is, in a very technical way. So it was for most of the customers, if they were not technical, which most DMUs are, not very easy to understand. So there was a big gap between what the value of a company or the technology or the products they offer towards what they communicate.
Right.
For instance, hello, I have this spec sheet. Want to buy?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Doesn't work.
Yeah.
So my background is in motion, visual applications. So that means everything that has to do with visual experience, from audio till imagery like film, 3D animation, 2D animation, like anything that's related to the topic.
Yep.
And, in communication, there are several ways to convey the message. And one of them is by speech, one of them is by text or by images. So what I saw is most of the things were done by text. And text is multi-interpretable, which means that I say, for instance, I talk about a red car, a fast red car. You maybe think of a Ferrari. Maybe you think of a Hyundai Kona. I don't know. It's a completely different image. But it's still happening everywhere. But in that case, there's a misinterpretation of what you actually want to convey and what people need to know. So I tried to move into that gap and use visual technology to solve the problem that they were facing. So on one hand, it's basically the complexity of value propositions around technology in the industry, and make it very, very simple to understand, and then in a visual way, because visual communication is understandable for everybody.
Yeah.
It is multilingual, and it's non-interpretable if you do it in the right way.
Right. So
that's where I started.
And you always been working in the industry, because you mentioned the industry a couple of times. So it's always in more of the tech manufacturing type of areas, or
why that segment, basically?
Yeah.
Well, there's like in myself there was it was a big interest in complex solutions, which were offering great value, which I didn't understand at the time. So there were multitude of companies who had great solutions, but what they tell you, it was non-understandable. So
do you remember the one that you kind of saw, okay, this is really awesome, but why don't you tell the story in a different way? Did the one or two that kind of got you on this path?
Yeah. That one of them was the Solar Team Twente at the time. They had great companies in their portfolio, in their sponsor portfolio. There were a lot of cool things going on. But what they told was, yeah, we have a nice car. And we drive in the sun.
It's too simple.
Right? But you forget to tell the story behind it. So we were in the startup phase. It was the first year. So we thought, okay, there are a lot of interesting companies behind it. So why not sponsor them big time? We did offer them a couple of months of our production capacity at the time.
Right.
Which is quite odd if you're a startup, because you need to have commercial customers, right? But we thought it was a nice step up into the market for us, because our network was mostly in broadcasting and in the agency world. But at the time, agencies were falling down with bunches. So, I thought that was a nice idea. So that's what we did. We created a very, very, very compelling animation, which told the complete proposition of all those companies in that car.
Right.
And eventually that worked like a charm. Cool. So everybody was impressed. We got on the table with all the most important stakeholders. And that's where we kicked off.
And win-win-win.
Win-win-win. Yeah. So was it product focused? So the visual storytelling and what you did for those companies, was it more, here's our service, here's our product, and let's make it a nice visual story? Because it's obviously more than just a pretty picture, right? It has a function, and I can see that with I call them explainations. I don't know if that's still a word, but
people use it.
Yeah. So the cartoony kind of thing, how to explain a complex process. But I think it's more than that, right? So if you introduce AR, VR, and you just mentioned the industry word XR, but how did that how does your company, how does your business help these companies with not just creating a nice, cool video? How do you actually get that story out there? What's the process there?
If I may go one step back,
sure.
You have, in basis, all challenges have a certain amount of complexity. And complexity is the basis of not knowing what it exactly is for most people, because most people can't grasp where it's all about.
Right.
So first you need to simplify complexity. That's on all business cases.
At a conceptual level, basically.
That's the second part.
Oh, sorry.
So it's the information management part.
Yeah.
Where it's all about. And proposition is mostly of the time fed by technicians. Technicians want to just tell everything. And it's not only for tech companies, but also for service companies or public-private companies. It's all over the place. Because they are into the matter. They know everything. They want to tell everything.
Yeah.
But that also counts for us. If I'm telling about what we do, it might get a little bit complex. But so first, it's basically an information management step you need to apply, and that is transforming the complexity into simplicity. And that's the most important part. The technology is just a means. Yeah. That's what we use. And when you have simplified, basically cracked the nut, for most companies, we basically created elevator pitches, which they weren't capable of doing themselves.
Right.
So
get down to the essence of what it is that they're actually doing.
Yeah, so we add more value than basically creating a visualization. That's what I heard all the time, and that's actually true.
Yeah.
So that's like the first step, simplification, and then how to apply it with the technology necessary to convey the message. And that can be done in several ways. One of the pillars is visual marketing.
Yep.
So that's more the marketing side, going to marketing, sales, communication. And the other side is digital transformation.
Right.
Because there's also a huge amount of complexity, which causes a lot of issues in the transformational process, where you can simplify things, visualize it, and enhance the process, adoption, onboarding, etc.
Is that also what you think then makes your company special? So the information management part and simplifying the complexity?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because there are more companies who can visualize.
Yeah.
That's not difficult to find.
Yeah.
But making.
So what's the balance then in your team between people who can do that process, so simplify the complex, and the ones who actually build the experience?
Well, we have a team of a lot of experienced people, and most of them started as a intern, for instance. So they got the whole culture, all the steps in the process, and they have a certain interest in complexity, We all have, actually.
Yeah.
So that's very nice to have, because then they know how to translate everything.
Yeah.
So it's you can say it's in our DNA, actually, that we have an interest for complexity and that we like to solve it with visualization.
So if you, let's stick a bit with that digital transformation, because I think that's a very interesting angle on how visual storytelling and experiences can maybe speed up the adoption process, or but there's tons of angles there. So the human side, I mean, how does that, should companies consider, if they're going through that digital transformation part, also think about their communication strategies? Is that a thing?
Yeah, we're basically we add value to the process, and if you look at from a triangle, you have the process side, technology side, and the human side. Technology side is most of the times perfectly organized. The process side is good, thought through, it works. But then you have the human side, and there's where it lacks. You know, from one side.
Communication, you mean, with
communication?
Yeah.
Culture, all related to the person itself. So if you look at consultancy, software suppliers, organization itself, it's a system of people working to get the transformation done in the right way, in the right time span. But almost never it is possible in the way people foresee their planning and doing it right. So there are a lot of hazards and points in the process that it doesn't work as they thought it should do.
Right.
And most of the times it has to do that people don't understand each other. So there is a amount of complexity that people can't communicate to the other.
Right. So an organization should really take, if they're going through, because our podcast is about evolving digital.
Yep.
Digital transformation is almost like a main topic. Talk about process, people, technology. Not so specific on how do you communicate that, right? So how do you do change management through, for instance, visual experiences? And so my thought was, if a company starts with, we need to digitize, we need to automate, it's not just an internal thing, right? You also need to do that with your clients. If you're in a traditional setting, manufacturing setting, is that the transformation process? Is that also not just on product, but also on how the company is changing? And should you communicate that to your clients as well?
Yeah, it's a process that integrates in everything. And let me give you a couple of examples.
Yeah.
We had a couple of customers having issues, which are obviously looking very small. But if you put it down to the chain in the end, what the customer experiences, because that's really important. For instance, if you have a large company with 1,500 plus IT employees, for instance, with all kind of divisions working with each other, and one of the guys thinks, well, maybe it's a good idea to publish a new release of one of the software solutions we offer at prime time.
Yeah.
And they didn't double check.
Right.
Which is not something which is not occurring.
Right. No, it
happens so now and then.
Yeah.
So just one push of a button causes a chain reaction. Software doesn't work. Customers can't log in, can't order, etc., etc., which causes a chain reaction to servers, to the internal IT departments, causing millions of damage by just one click of a button. But the guy doesn't know. Maybe he doesn't even report where it's coming from. So that's about awareness.
They seem not connected, but they are interconnected. That's what you're saying.
They don't know what the effect of their action is.
Yeah.
And if they don't know what their position in the whole chain is, they don't know exactly what they're doing. Of course, they know within their specialism what they do, but they don't know exactly what they do in relation to the context.
Yeah.
So if you give them the context of where you are in a team, in an organization, and what the role of the team and the department is within the organization, they make different decisions.
Mhm.
So you can make sure that such things will not happen or will happen less.
Right.
And that's all about. It's awareness about who you are, what you are doing in relation to the rest around you, and what the mission strategy of the organization is, the impact on your clients, your most important stakeholders. And if you can make that visual, that's where it's all about.
For me, it seems so far from creating a nice video or creating a nice AR experience. If this is the beginning of getting to that point. So where do you start as an organization? Is it, how do you become aware that is where you need to start, instead of I need to say something and I need the complexity out of it? Let's do a explanation again, right? That's a communication strategy change, right? That's part of the digital transformation.
Yeah.
Where do you start then? Is it
that depends. Whatever.
do people know that's where they need to start? They should start.
At this time, most of them don't.
Okay. So how do you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Sure.
What's in your toolbox to get your the people that you work with, get them to that point where they so in our business, nobody is asking for, can you build me a website anymore? So they have some maturity, or they have a lot of maturity actually, and they start with a lot of times the base problem to fix that. How's that with you? How do you help organizations to that point where they can start with, where the problem actually can be tackled?
Yeah, the problem definition is quite easy, because everybody experiences the same problem. Problem with adoption, problem with onboarding, all kind of delays during the process. People don't understanding each other. That's like a common issue in transformation itself, not even in digital alone. Difficulties with implementations, difficulties understanding each other, which is basic communication. So the problems are all over the place. And how it's solved at the moment is people talk with each other, make it sometimes even more complex. Or another consultancy firm comes in and try to solve the issue with all kind of methodologies. And sure, it helps.
Yeah.
But there's still no clarity, and everybody's on the same page. So
is it then the strategy department, the digital transformation department, the communications
yeah, that depends. So you have the digital transformation department, if it's there, or it is external, or it is on board level, CIO, CITO, CFO. It depends on how the organization is organized. Sometimes it starts from engineering side. Sometimes it starts from the board side. Sometimes it starts from innovation. That's
you can't really
dependent.
tell.
No, I can't really tell. So it feels like some sort of a prophecy I need to tell to people.
Yeah.
Because it depends on who you need and where you find traction. It also they need to be people who understand what I'm saying.
Right.
And I understand sometimes also that it might be a bit difficult to understand what I'm saying. Yeah. But that doesn't matter. Then you're not ready yet.
Right.
Then you first have to experience the problems, and the guy told me that's going to happen.
Told me 3 years ago.
Now it clicks.
Yeah. So most of the times, but that's changing. That's a good thing. But most of the times we work with people who like to
visionaries,
the visionary people.
Yeah.
So the people who are really
up for a challenge.
Yeah, proactively taking risk.
Make changes.
And those people, that's where we find traction with, and we help them in creating the value for the whole organization from that starting point.
Well, those are the people always typically with the why very clear.
Yeah, they know exactly how the organization is organized. In some organizations, there are a few people who know how it works.
Yeah.
For instance, the IT architecture is organized, where the issues are, what needs to be done.
So, once you get to that point, when you find those people that actually they're on the same kind of, let's say they're in the same ballpark, They want to play the game. They want to see, where they can take this digital transformation and make complexity simplified. There's a couple of tools, technologies that you mentioned, but AR, VR. How is that changing their landscape? So they know what they want to do, and then you get to the point. Okay, so now we're gonna create something that will actually do what we intend to do. So how is that? Do you have any examples on how that is changing the mindset with people within the organization? So how is AR or VR? How is that helping?
Technology is in some certain way irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's about visualization. So that's the last step actually of the whole process.
Okay.
So first, digital transformation also is like a container a terminology.
Yeah.
And within digital transformation, you have several topics where it can apply on. And one of the most important at the moment is the IT infrastructure, because it's getting more complex over time. There's a lot of migrations from legacy systems to total integratable systems.
Yeah.
There are coming new applications from everywhere, and nobody knows how it's all connected anymore.
Yeah.
So how can you create clarity in that landscape that it's obvious for everyone how it works, and that would be extremely beneficial. So we did a use case for a very nice one actually for Achmea, Centraal Beheer, which were at the time implementing a SAP
right
systematic.
Yeah.
Overall, there were like 1,500 IT developers, and it was quite difficult to completely understand their structure. Some people didn't even know after years working in the company.
Yeah.
Which I understand because it is quite complex. So what we did actually is first, so what I told before, complexity to simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
The complexity was the landscape, and the landscape is nothing more than blocks and lines, data streams, systems.
Yeah.
So how can you convey that message and make it simple? Well, that's easy. Apply a metaphor. So an environment. So we created a city. So, for instance,
what do you mean with we created a city?
A city, a visual city, an actual
like
city.
A 3D or a
3D
picture
city.
of a city or what?
No, a 3D city.
Okay.
So what I mean with that is, for instance, the center that handles all the fraud causes is translated towards a police officer. The API intersection was visualized as a intersection with metro, trains, traffic, all coming together. So you get a metaphorical situation in which you can explain the complexity and also the relation between systems. Yeah. So, for instance, since it is an insurance company, they have a policy center, which is the most important part of their company. So we build a metropole, which is the policy center. And then, for instance, you have the center of the fraud center, and there was a lot of traffic between those systems. So we created roads where a lot of traffic is going. And so you create metaphors to explain certain kind of information in the IT architecture.
Right. And
that was enhanced with storylines because you can show it, but then they have to discover it themselves. And that's...
But this was for non-IT people or...
IT people.
IT people.
And then non-IT people.
Okay.
Also the board.
Yeah.
And in the end, also end customers.
Yeah. How did IT people respond when you kind of
simplified
their very complex world?
Well, there was something we in the beginning didn't know what will happen. But what we got back is that normally at certain events, there was, IT people are a certain kind of people. They have their own interests. So if you want to show them something new, it has to be in their lane of interest. Otherwise, they are not interested.
Yeah.
And the cool thing here was that everybody was really interested to know a little bit about the solution. But I have to make a few steps further on. The whole city was created in virtual reality. So you put on your glasses and then you're
in the
city. You were looking at the city, so you get an overview of the city. And there were all kind of storylines telling you how departments work together. If you're in a department, what the relations between them are, what the most important tasks are.
Right.
So basically in 10 or 15 minutes, you get a complete understanding of the whole system. And so that's the application, basically,
Right. Yeah.
in virtual reality. And it really helps by going through all of the city, which has all kind of storylines in it,
Yep.
and showing relations, etc. And then you exactly know how it works. But that thing causes that they had, like, I believe, a 98 or 99% attendance from the IT department going through the city itself.
The entire city.
So there was a lot of interest. This was the first thing. It was really nice.
Yeah.
Normally they had, I don't know, below 10 or something. So that was really nice. And it gave them the ability to understand the whole systematic in 50 minutes instead of days, of weeks. If I go back to my storyline, I told you about that it's very important to get an understanding about the context in your organization. Yeah. Then you make different choices.
Yeah.
If you make wrong choices, you get faults later in the process.
Right.
So I think you can relate it to that.
That's cool.
If you know the context, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know what the effects of your actions are.
Yeah.
Context is very important. And maybe you don't know right away, but if you've seen the problems and analyze them, what happened in the beginning.
Understanding the landscape and everybody's around you.
Yeah.
That's good.
But I'm going really into depth. I was starting with IT, but also you have strategy and vision, mostly designed in or created from board level.
Mm-hmm.
Some organizations do it differently, which is, I think, better. To go.
You mean bottom up?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
For the organization. But anyway, there's vision strategy.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's a disconnect between the board and the rest of the organization.
Yeah.
And what is vision and strategy?
What? That's a question.
Yes.
What it is?
Yeah.
Well, I would consider it's not driven by bottom line shareholder value results, but in practice, that's probably what it is. And if you're talking about, I don't know, in an innovation company, they usually have a clear vision on what it is that they want to achieve. That for me is more of a vision than let's do digital transformation because we have to. Right?
Yeah. So basically, a holistic view on the future and a plan to get there.
Yeah. Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
In which context and where?
Yeah.
Most of the times, it is communicated in text.
Yeah.
And text is multi-interpretable. So what you get is different visions on strategy and on the vision. So people want to go there, but they go there and they go there and go there. So you get all different kind of distractions and not moving in the right way where you in the end want to be at. And there are in time changing situations. So it's a difficult process.
Yeah.
So basically also vision strategy can be visualized. You can create a situation in the future where you can already basically travel to and get an understanding how the organization would look like at that certain point in time. But you cannot do that with text or with speech.
You could, but then people probably won't read it.
You have to experience.
You have to experience it.
You have to get there. Yeah. You have to be there to actually understand because you memorize and you have to experience what it's all about and the relation between everything within the organization. And that is possible again with visualization.
Is that your vision? Is that experience is the best way to go through transitions to understand vision? You need to experience it.
100%. Yeah. I can read something. I maybe memorize 15%. If I see it in a movie or in a visual, I maybe memorize 25%. If I interact, so I do it, so practical learning, then I know what to do. So it's basically a principle from apprentice to mastery.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you teach it, then you already know how the process works and you convey the message to the other. How they know.
I think a lot of trainings and educations are also in the same philosophy, using the same philosophy.
Yep.
That you see it, experience it.
Yeah, in the beginning we talked about SiriusXR. That company focuses on integrating virtual technology for the industry and for education.
Mm-hmm.
And that is focused on this theory. It is about teaching practicality. So you need to do it before knowing exactly what you want to do. Certain situations where you're, for instance, not able to train.
Yeah. I can imagine in the industry there's a lot of installers that get new products along the way. We had Somfy in the podcast, for example, who are in dynamic solar shading. And one of their challenges is there's a whole different level of different types of installers who don't really know what all the Internet of Things new motors and controls are doing, and what they can do with them, and how to install them, and what not to do. So it's kind of one of their challenges is how to train those installers better.
That's I think, of course, a lot of change is driven by a vision. How do you see the future of the digital transformation process? Related to all the visual technologies that are emerging. Will it accelerate? Will it make it easier? How do you see those here we go. The AI driven kind of experiences. How is that evolving the digital transformation process? You think?
I think AI is there's a lot of hustle now at the topic. Everybody is moving away with it, but that if you look at the technology cycle last 25 years or so, you have those hypes, and then they go in a bit in the low, and then they go further on. And the applications are now being made on AI. It's going quicker than other cycles. So for us, we use it obviously, but more like in a service kind of way, that it helps us doing our work better. For clients, of course. But you see also that it adds value into creating better experiences.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of knowledge which you can use to integrate it in enhancing the experience itself automatically. But what it does in the future, well, we have to experience, I guess. But that it works, yes, it definitely works. And it enhances the information management part on all kind of levels. So basically from creating visualizations, but also simplifying complexity.
Because that's what I'm seeing. We hardly talked about the means today. Yeah, talked a lot about strategy and the vision on how those experiences can support the digital transformation process. Yeah. So in that part, are these new technologies or this new direction that everybody's taking? Is that changing your work? Is that changing how you collect information, how you interact with clients to gather that information before you start creating stuff? Is that different as well? Consultancy, for instance, right? I mean, if we do buyer journeys, we did a lot of interviews, we did a lot of desk research. That is changing as well. Right? It's to get to what it actually is that the buyer is facing in the world to get to a certain product. The way how we visualize that, or how we create that those insights is a lot different now. Is that the same case for you?
Yeah, but that's mostly located on time. What I mean with that is resource allocation.
Mm-hmm.
You look at certain kind of processes took 100% time.
Mm-hmm.
Can be done in 25. So you allocate the people.
So it's accelerating.
Yes, it's accelerating, definitely. Yeah. So the course value is the same, but the costs get lower. So it gets more interesting for a certain kind of customer base to start with processes that were not accessible to them before. Yeah. And you create more value because in certain products you have more time to do more. And that's obviously happening.
So what would be your advice? Because basically tech or innovation is opening up this visual experience option for a lot of companies now. What would your advice be to, except for calling you, but for companies who want to use this this direction to accelerate their digital transformation process?
Companies in the market, or what do you mean? Anybody?
Well, everybody that is now in a more of a traditional type of setting and understands my clients and my customers expect something different from me. Is moving away from, hey, this is what we can deliver, to what is it actually that the market needs. So we need to change, right? I'd like to call everything a digital transformation, but what would your advice be for them to start in the transformation process? Do they need to understand that they're in a complex situation, or is it just, let's start with this transformation process and see what we can do to make it more simple? Where do they start?
What I see most of the times is that a lot of people are very opportunistic. So they think, okay, we get this done in a certain amount of time, and of course there are risk assessments done on the process.
Yeah.
But what I see most of the times, what I already told is the human factor is being forgotten too much.
Yeah.
So there should be more focus there. Tech is okay, process is okay.
Yeah.
The human side, that's
okay.
not taken care of.
Right.
So if you focus more on that position, because faults will only be made by humans in the end.
Mm-hmm.
We hit the wrong button, robot won't.
Yeah.
So we have to make.
Well, there's people who think that AI should, for instance, be allowed to make mistakes, but okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's a different discussion, I guess. But then would be perfect world. But if we would help people more to do the right things, we get more efficient. There will be less faults, etc., etc.
Right.
Of course, we have still to manage culture and interaction with people and everything related to those topics. But that's where we can enhance. That's where we can make it better.
Cool. So when you want to start transitioning, think about people first. Think about how communicate that transition to the world around you. That's basically the idea, right?
Yeah, we all have our glasses which have a filter, I perceive things differently than you. I communicate things differently than you. So that means that everything I say is perceived differently by everybody. Mm-hmm. If we can, and it starts at the top and it goes down and down, and every level there's a new interpretation on interpretation on interpretation. So the story here is never the story there.
It's like the old kids play where you whistle or you mention something in someone's ear, and then at the end the message is completely different if you have a chain of people. Yeah.
It is completely true. So if you can manage to make that consistent,
you're good to go.
You have a lot of efficiency.
Yeah. A friend of mine always says, if you're trying to convey a message and the other person isn't catching what you are trying to tell you, you're not building the right bridge. Yeah. And that's kind of what you're saying as well. We need to simplify the complex message so that everyone can understand it by experiencing it.
Exactly. And we talked about vision is basically a holistic view in the future.
Yeah.
So what we did over the last 2 years is we helped an organization called OOMT, which is the institution for education within the automotive industry, to help all companies within the automotive industry in Holland to move towards the electrical transformation, so the energy transformation, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And as you may know, dealers know that it's coming and that it's happening already. We see it on the highways, in our streets. Maybe you have an electric car. I know you have an electric car.
I do. Yep.
So a lot of is happening at that playing field. But not for the dealers, because they sell those cars and they have the mechanics and the engineers to manage it. But the smaller service centers or the garages, they find it more difficult because they work on combustion engines.
Yeah,
that's what they do. That's their passion.
Right.
Well, it's nice to work at those. I can fix it. I have a lot of experience in it. That's my revenue model. I know where to earn my money on replacing parts, on my hours. But the market is changing, and they find it difficult to transition basically to another situation where they can also handle electrified vehicles. And how do I do it? And how do I get there? It's a complex message.
Right.
But it starts with the vision. So the OOMT has a vision on the future, but it's difficult to convey for all those garages. So what we did, we helped them in creating the future. We built a complete electrified garage in, let's say, 20...
Like a workshop where the
2030.
Okay.
Garage decline.
Yeah.
Where you can experience what it is to have a garage which is completely electrified. So you start outside of the company, the CEO welcomes you, and you can experience from the showroom where a interactive screen is giving you tickets and information about the process of your car. Electrified cars are sold, but also steps. Maybe you sell drones, maybe you sell energy contracts. It's a completely different scenario. So it makes you aware how it might be in the future. So it's not theoretical pushed at you, but you experience it yourself. So you get the demand to understand and to know how you want to move forward. But maybe you're not comfortable with, no problem, but you can start a discussion and talk with each other. What needs to be done to get at the position where you're comfortable with.
More context to the vision.
Yeah.
Because you experience it.
Yeah, and it was massively successful. So almost all garages went through the experience, get a vision about where they want to position themselves, because we built different scenarios, a fully electrified, semi-electrified, quarterly electrified, so to say. And based on that success, we also did that for the truck industry, because that's also moving up quickly to electrification. Same thing there. Make them aware of the future, and if they know what the future is, they know where to move or what they find themselves comfortable with. Not only,
and then again, the positioning on which end of the spectrum do I want to be in.
And you talk with each other about what it means on entrepreneurship, what it means on being an engineer.
Yeah.
You do small games to move your knowledge to another level. There are all kind of interactions within such an experience to get the right stack of information for yourself to make the right decisions for your future path.
That would be a good starting point. So, do the organizations first have to experience that pushback on we're trying to tell and not show doesn't work, or is it something that we should just start with?
No, it's first. Of course, you first start with traditional media. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing where you go back because you're experienced with it. Mm-hmm. But if it doesn't give you the right output that you need, you start looking at different solutions or different methodologies or technologies. Yeah. And that's where we came up and get in contact with the organization and their communication agency, and together we crafted this solution for them.
Very cool.
Yeah, but I think it's applicable to every organization. Every organization has a vision, has an holistic view, wants to be somewhere, and has to get everybody on the same page, in the same boat, and make the same steps and the same milestones to be there. Right. And that's where the tricky part is. Because if you end up there and not there, well, you might be a little bit wrong in the end.
Very interesting take on the transformation process, I guess, right?
Awesome. Yeah. So, Ton, when we talk about digital transformation, it seems like it's a very tough topic, a tough subject, complex. Is that fair, you think?
Of course, it is complex. But I think what the big takeaway should be from our podcast here is that where you're situated with which topic within digital transformation, you have to get started in the beginning with creating context. Context, yeah. And context in such a way that everybody understands where you're moving towards, what your goals are, and how you want to get there. Mm-hmm. If everybody's on the same page, everything will go far more fluently than just accepting that there might be different interpretations on what you just pay. Yeah. I think the expectation that it's clear for everybody should never be done, should never be accepted, because it's not necessary.
So leadership and simplify the story and take everyone on that journey.
Yes. Good conclusion.
Thank you.
So we have a question for you from our previous guest,
right?
Mark Geljon. He's a storyteller as well. And he has his idea, like, okay, so if AI takes over the creation process, let's say that is going to happen. Yep. A lot of people think, there's always two sides to the story. A lot of people think that it will never happen, and the other half thinks, it's already there. So, but let's assume that would happen. where does that leave us as humans in that process?
Well, let me first tell Mark is a fantastic guy, so a good question. Well, I think it will happen. Of course, it's already doable right now.
Yeah.
But if we move out the human factor, we don't have the ability to control exactly if the output is correct. And I think it might be, I don't know, maybe 80 or 70, 80, 90% in the right way, but it's never a perfect match yet.
Right.
So we need to still be able to direct or organize exactly what needs to be done. We need to check.
Yeah.
Because on the...
Stay critical.
Very critical.
Yeah.
Because it's
still
not
human to
eenheidsworst.
human. Yeah.
Right. Cool. Thank you very much. I guess that wraps it up for today. Thank you very much, Ton, for your insights on this one.
You're welcome. Sure.
Everybody that's listening, if you like it, please feel free to comment on the different channels, and we'd love to hear your ideas. Like and subscribe, of course, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much, Janika. Thank you as well.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the next one. Thanks.
Stay connected to the Evolving Digital Podcast. See you next time.